That would be great. Thank you.
Put your arms up if you can touch someone else's hand.
Yeah, there you go. And the cameras can get a wide shot, and then perfect.
Hans, are you leaving your mask on?
I will not. I'll be taking it down as soon as I begin. All right. All right. Are we ready, Susan?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Hans Reamer, Montgomery County Council Member at Large and Chair of the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. And I'm really pleased to be here today with my colleagues and with the Sierra Club, with the Coalition for Smart Growth, with the Friends of Forest Glen, and leading housing advocates. We're here today because we have a lot riding on Metro, and we have a lot riding on our vision to build more housing at Metro. The problem is, if you turn around here, you see a surface parking lot. And if you go to most Metro stations in Montgomery County, you're going to see surface parking lots and parking garages, where we should have high-rise housing. The problem is the market is not working to support the development of new high-rise housing. And we have got to change the game for development in Metro sites, because if there is one place that we can all agree we want as much housing as possible, it is on top of a Metro station. And yet we're not getting it. Today we're going to hear from, for example, the Friends of Forest Glen, a community group that came together working with the County Council to pass a visionary and ambitious plan for the land around you here at the station and down Georgia Avenue. We are trying so hard to re-envision and redevelop aging infrastructure to build the housing supply that we need to fight climate change, to promote affordability, and to strengthen our economic competitiveness. But the housing at the Metro station sites is key to that vision. And so working with the business community, with housing advocates, we have put forward a proposal that I believe will be a game changer. I really want to thank my colleagues, especially Andrew Friedson, who working with me at the Housing Committee has been a champion on so many housing issues. His expertise has made a huge difference. Evan Glass has been a leader on housing issues in his yet new term at the County Council, his short time at the County Council. He's already been an advocate and a leader on housing issues. And many of my other colleagues, in fact, 8 out of 9 council members are co-sponsoring this legislation that is before us today. There is a regional housing shortage, and this is a solution that has regional potential. If you talk to WMATA, you will learn that there is very little high-rise housing anywhere in the Metro system on top of stations. And yet we have a major gap in the amount of new housing that we are producing in the region. So Montgomery County, if we enact this, will be a regional leader, and I am sure that other regions in other jurisdictions in the region will take a close look at what we're doing here in order to consider how to adapt it for their own location. Housing on top of Metro is a solution in the fight against climate change. Increasing the supply of housing in the county will help alleviate pressure on rent, on market affordable housing, and it will bring new affordable housing to the county through our MPDU program. High-rise development will bring, according to our modeling, between 1,200 and 1,300 new MPDU units on the county's Metro Station properties. So we need to make that happen. And this legislation creates an incentive for developers to build high-rise. It is only for high-rise. It is 8 stories and above. And the reason is it becomes very expensive to build at that level. So we would extend Metro's property tax exemption to new development for 15 years for high-rise development on top of the Metro, at the Metro stations. So that is the proposal that will be introduced before the County Council tomorrow. And after the introduction, we'll have a public hearing in about a month after that. And then following the public hearing, we'll have committee sessions. So we hope to be able to get this passed sometime early in the fall. I am now going to introduce my colleagues, and then we'll hear from housing advocates, environmental advocates, and community leaders about the importance of this provision. So we'll begin with my colleague, Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Thank you to Councilmember Reamer. It's great to be here. If there was such thing as sweat equity in this deal, we'd all have it right now. So I appreciate everybody joining us and bearing with it. But when we talk about smart growth development, we talk about transit-oriented development, that doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. It happens by government and private sector joining together in collaboration and in partnership to figure out how we can make these deals possible, how we can make the economics actually work. That's what this effort is all about. I'm really excited to be part of it, to also join with Councilmember Glass, who has been a champion for affordable housing prior to joining the council and has continued to do so while he's here. This is about reaching our ambitious housing targets, turning our housing goals into actual housing units, about turning our ridership goals for Metro into actual riders who take transit, who don't rely on a car. When we talk about building a sustainable community, when we talk about building an inclusive community, when we talk about realizing our economic development potential, we cannot do that, we cannot achieve that if we don't maximize the full potential of Metro Station housing, right on top of the most sustainable place to put housing, right on top of the most significant public investment that we make in our community on transit. This is an opportunity to turn plans into reality. We master planned this for 120 feet to have significant amounts of housing. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we incentivize that housing so we maximize the development potential, we realize the full economic, the full environmental sustainability, and the full housing needs and possibilities that we have at this site and at Metro sites throughout Montgomery County. I am really excited to be part of this effort, really excited to be here today, and can't wait to see us turn plans into reality, turn housing goals into actual housing units. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm Councilmember Evan Glass, an at-large member of the council, and I want to thank Chairman Reamer, Chair of the Housing Committee, for putting forth this thoughtful proposal to be able to increase affordable housing here in Montgomery County in a smart growth manner. You know, there is no better place to accommodate future residents than on the Metro sites, so that we can build more transit-oriented development. Now, right now, public transportation has declined because people are concerned about their personal health. But once we have a vaccine for COVID-19 and people return at record numbers to taking public transportation, we are once again going to be concerned about the Earth's health. And transit-oriented development is a way that we can reduce carbon emissions and help protect the Earth for generations and millennia to come. And that's what this proposal really does. It makes sure that we as a county get behind our own goals, which is to build thousands and thousands of units here. You know, the county council has already pledged to building 23,000 units of affordable housing here in Montgomery County as part of the Council of Governments Regional Work Plan. And this proposal will bring about 1,200 to 1,400 units of affordable housing when it's realized. And so that is us fulfilling, or at least working towards, our commitment here in Montgomery County. And again, doing it in a thoughtful, environmentally sustainable way. Because we want people to continue moving to Montgomery County, because it is a beautiful place where we welcome every single person, but we want them to come and to take public transportation and to help make our environment better than it currently is. And again, all of these are intertwined. They build upon each other, and that's why this proposal to build more housing on Metro sites is so smart, and it is so important for the future of not only Montgomery County, but of our planet. And I just want to thank Chairman Reamer and Councilmember Friedson for putting this proposal together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass and Councilmember Friedson. Again, we're here today to announce the More Housing at Metro legislation that will be introduced at the council tomorrow. I'm going to read a statement from Councilmember Nancy Navarro, who asked me to share her support today. I thank Councilmembers Reamer and Friedson for their work on this important legislation. I'm an enthusiastic co-sponsor. This legislation is central to the economic development platform that I authored and the Council adopted during my Council presidency last year. This bill seeks to leverage WMATA sites in order to create additional residential units. As such, it touches on two pillars of the economic development platform: the housing pillar, which calls on the Council to find ways to achieve the COG goals, and the transportation pillar, as it provides incentives for developers to construct housing in our activity centers near transit and increase ridership. As you know, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we were working hard to address the challenge of finding innovative ways to increase our housing production, particularly affordable housing, and now it is clear as we begin to recover, making sure that we have an adequate supply of housing, affordable housing, will be even more critical. Again, I want to thank Councilmember Reamer and Councilmember Friedson for co-lead sponsoring this legislation, and my council colleagues that have agreed to sign on as co-sponsors, and I look forward to supporting this bill. Now I'd like to turn to some of our community leadership, the voices from our community leadership. Very excited to be joined today by the Sierra Club. Shruti Bhatnagar is here as I believe the chair of the Montgomery County chapter of the Sierra Club, and she's going to share some remarks. Thank you, Shruti, for being here.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Reamer. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shruti Bhatnagar, and I'm the chair of Sierra Club Montgomery County. I'm here this afternoon representing over 6,000 members and supporters of Sierra Club that support this legislation. Sierra Club's #1 priority is to address climate change quickly and aggressively. Montgomery County has transformed over the past several decades from a sleepy bedroom suburb into a vibrant, urbanizing community with well over 1 million residents. Our location in one of the nation's most thriving regions gives our county the opportunity and responsibility to make a substantial contribution to addressing climate change. By designing and implementing smart policies and programs in the realms of transportation, housing, and land use, our county can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute largely to climate change. Councilmember Reamer has proposed legislation to expand housing at metro stations through an extension of property tax abatement for high-rise development in such locations. Sierra Club enthusiastically supports this bill. It will be an important instrument for the county in addressing climate change. This proposed legislation will contribute to 3 key Sierra Club housing priorities: encourage more total housing units in the county, encourage at least 80% new housing units to be located within walking distance of transit stations, encourage more new housing that is affordable, especially within walking distance of transit stations. Sierra Club Montgomery County supports this legislation because it aligns with our priorities and helps the county move forward in its equity goals. It is also important to have affordable housing near transit to promote a healthy, active lifestyle. On behalf of Sierra Club Montgomery County, I would like to thank Councilmember Hans Reamer, Councilmember Andrew Friedson, Councilmember Evan Glass, and all the council members who are supporting this legislation. And Sierra Club is proud to be supporting this legislation. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. So pleased that the Sierra Club is supporting this legislation. Now I'll ask Jane Lyons from the Coalition for Smart Growth to join us and share us CSG's view.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hans. I'm going to leave the mask on. My name is Jane Lyons. I'm the Maryland Advocacy Manager for the Coalition for Smarter Growth. And we're the leading organization in the DC region advocating for more walkable, inclusive, and transit-oriented communities. And we can't really build those types of communities without legislation like this. Building transit-oriented communities starts with transit-oriented development, especially at metro stations. And for too long, it's been too difficult to build on top of metro stations due to market constraints, due to parking replacement practices from WMATA, and other construction challenges. So we really need big, bold ideas like this bill to build more housing at metro. And because the challenge with housing is so large, we have a demand for thousands and thousands more units of housing than we actually have, and it's going to take a lot of creative, out-of-the-box thinking from our elected officials in order to get there. So thank you so much to Councilmember Reamer, to Councilmember Friedson and Glass for their support and leadership on housing issues. And thank you to all of the other co-sponsors of this legislation. So the coalition looks forward to supporting this really promising proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, and the Coalition for Smarter Growth. Now I'd like to ask Dan Reed to share a few words. Dan is a writer. His blog, Just Up the Pike, is well read by housing activists in the region, and he's also a contributor to Greater Washington, and he is a housing activist. So, Dan Reed.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Reed. I grew up in Silver Spring, and I'm a recent homeowner here. I want to thank Councilmember Reamer for producing this bill, and for Councilmembers Friedson and Glass for supporting it. I strongly believe that every house in Montgomery County and every place tells a story, right? It's the opportunity for somebody to put down roots in this community and contribute to this place and make it even better. This parking lot is an opportunity to give so many more people the chance to tell their stories in this community, the same way that my mother did when she came here as an immigrant to raise a family and to come back to school, the same way that my partner and I did last year when we bought our first home in the county and decided to build our adult lives here. We have a chronic housing shortage in Montgomery County and the DC area, which drives up prices and makes it difficult for people every day to live and to have happy, fulfilled lives here. And this burden will always fall hardest on people of color and queer people and young people. So if we want to ensure that these folks have a future in Montgomery County, we need to be able to provide homes for them and to make it as easy as possible to build homes for them, especially in a place like the Forest Glen Metro Station. Across the street at Holy Cross Hospital, people are busting their butts every day to save lives during this pandemic, and I can't imagine how many of them have to commute long distances to do this important work. We can help them, we can help this community, we can make this community a stronger, more sustainable, more economically vibrant place through this bill, and I'm eager for the conversation it's going to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Reed. Really appreciate Dan's work over many years to provide a strong voice for housing, and he's made a huge difference, so I'm so glad he's here today. The Friends of Forest Glen is a community group that came together, that organized to ensure that the County Council adopted a forward-thinking, visionary master plan to revitalize the community that we're in right now. So I'm really excited and grateful for the community leadership of Alison Gillespie and Ted Martin and Pratap Verma and so many others who came together to help us be here where we are today. So I've asked Alison to share some remarks, and she'll be followed by Pratap. Alison.
Good afternoon. My name is Alison Gillespie, and I'm so pleased to welcome you all to my neighborhood. And I'm extremely excited about Councilmember Reamer's proposed legislation. I think it could go a long way to jumpstarting development near all metro stations. This one being closest to my house, of course, I'm the most excited about. I'm an environmental advocate, and I'm someone who cares passionately about reducing greenhouse emissions like Shruti. And I want to bring down our carbon footprint. So transit-oriented development, people have already said all these great points about that. In fact, I bought my house 19 years ago to be close to transit. And we need more people. More people deserve that. It shouldn't be a luxury, it should be logical. We need more housing on top of that, literally on top of that, and it makes sense to put new homes close to that transit. As neighborhood association president, of the neighborhood that is literally right across the street, I have been proud to support zoning changes that would encourage more development here. My dream is being able to walk to a coffee shop and meet friends right now, right here where we are at this moment. A lot of my neighbors dream of being able to pick up their kids from daycare. Right now, they ride the metro when it's not COVID. They get off the metro and then have to get in their cars to go pick up their kids at daycare. So we have a joke about transit-oriented development, transit-oriented daycare. We would love to have this be very walkable. Right now, we get all the bad bits of urbanization. This neighborhood was built to be out in the country, to get away from the city. Over time, the city enveloped it all around. And we didn't get any of the real amenities that make city living so enjoyable because you can't walk anywhere safely. The intersection that everyone drove through to get into the station is called the intersection of death and is regularly rated as one of the worst intersections in the state. We worked on that intersection to make it safer, and we worked with the officials that need to make it safer. But another thing that would make this whole area walkable is if we could hit reset. And instead of having 8 acres of really what I think is pretty ugly parking, beautiful housing for lots more people, we would be able to think about it with a clean slate, and that includes walkability. Another aspect that my neighbors and I dream of, and we're so anxious for development, is because we think that it could also be more environmentally sustainable. Ironically, building more here may enable us to reduce pollution levels. Not only would we be able to reduce the pollution of all the people that would live here, who maybe they don't have to drive some really long, crazy commute. They'll be able to take Metro, and what a dream that would be for them, just like it was for me 19 years ago. Or maybe they'll be able to take the bus, which my husband and I often do. But also, this 8-acre parking lot is nothing but a collector of pollution. And when it rains, because it was built before modern stormwater regulations, pollution just sheets off at high speed and heads down to the local creek. And those of us that live in the neighborhood have seen the results. That creek is scoured out, the water quality is poor, is going right into Rock Creek, right into the Potomac, and right into the Chesapeake. So this is a case where building near Metro could be building greener and making a more sustainable decision. And I say bring it, bring it, bring it as soon as you can. As soon as I heard about this legislation, I was super, super happy to support it. I guess the last thing I want to say is that I'm excited to think of having a multi-story building here because I'm really excited to welcome new neighbors. One of the things I say as neighborhood association president across the street, I have pledged in pretty much every zoning meeting that I've attended, and it became almost a second job for me to go to zoning meetings. I have pledged that when those homes are built, whatever they are, whatever kind of units they are, no matter how many there are, I will knock on every door with a neighborhood newsletter, and I will say, welcome to the neighborhood, we're glad to have you here. More people deserve to be near Metro, and I think this legislation is going to make that happen. So thanks, Councilmember Reamer, and thanks to the supporters of the legislation.
Thank you so much, Allison. Pratap Verma is not only helped begin the campaign for Friends of Forest Glen, but also now has been appointed to the Montgomery County Planning Board, and he's a neighbor here. So Pratap Verma.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having us today. You know, this is an exciting day for Forest Glen and a lot of the metro parking lots around the county. We know, according to a recent study, that 72% of new housing needs to be near transit. Yet, communities like this that are very vibrant and diverse, a lot of people of color, and as Dan Reed mentioned, other vulnerable communities, don't have access to transit. So what we are trying to do here is increase the footprint, have taller, denser buildings near metro stations, and as everyone before me has very eloquently stated, this is not only just an affordable housing issue, that's a huge part of it, but it's also tackling what we are currently in, which is a climate crisis. We understand now that we have to get out of our cars, we have to walk more, we have to go to retail in a way where we could walk to it. We know in this particular neighborhood, most people are taking these very short trips just to get a gallon of milk. Well, what if you could do it here? What if you could do it at the metro station? And in Montgomery County, there are a lot of sites like Forest Glen, like in Glenmont and Grosvenor, where we'd like to see more development happen. You know, this county council was instrumental in passing what can only be described as a landmark bill with racial and equity principles that basically says that as planners, as government, we recognize that we need to do better in serving our communities. And I'm so happy today that Councilmember Reamer, Glass, and the whole crew, Friedson, are actually coming together and walking the walk. So I want to commend all of you for doing that. It's not easy, and we can do it together, but if we could develop in a station like this that has been trying for 10 years to make something happen, that would be historical. So thank you again.
So that concludes our program. We certainly can take questions if there are, if anyone's still alive out there.
Sweat equity is real.
Sweat equity is real. Brianna.
Do you plan to review each development, if this legislation passed, review each development, proposed development, so this applies to that, or would it automatically be applied to?
This would be an automatic, it would be automatically available. We would certainly also review each development for a lot of different issues, and we might approach each development and perhaps we try to find ways to even increase the level of affordable housing, for example, at a development. But this would be the base level, and this would apply to all metro station properties in the county. Yes, sir.
Got a flat tire on his way here.
Ah,
What exactly would you build here?
we should do it all over again. We could do it all over again.
What do you design as the
Yeah.
here? Just housing?
What's that?
120 feet.
Yeah, we have zoned this land here for a significant amount of housing, 120 feet buildings, community, commercial amenities, perhaps daycare, a restaurant, a cafe. We envision transforming this to being the hub of a revitalized Forest Glen with a lot of great features that make this a much better place to live. Unfortunately, that is never going to happen unless a private sector entity is willing to take a risk and build here, and if they can make enough profit to justify it. And we have not seen any buildings in Montgomery County on any metro site go up that are high-rise. It has not happened in a really, really long time. So there is a problem in the market. We've got to have some kind of game-changing solutions so that we can start to get some acceleration of the housing market. There's another great example. This is not the only one. Every metro site in the county practically has been zoned for more housing, more capacity, but also the Grosvenor site. There is you can speak with one of the developers who's here right now, but Grosvenor is another good example where we have envisioned a really spectacular community, going to be home to thousands of people with a real arts and cultural focus. But it's challenging to do development, especially in this environment now. We want development and housing to help lead us out of the recession into recovery, and this legislation is going to help do that. Brianna.
Do you think there will be enough economic benefits to this legislation versus the loss of property taxes to the county?
Yeah, so the first thing is to keep in mind that the county is not presently collecting any property tax from WMATA. So WMATA is already exempt from paying. What we are talking about is allowing new development to continue WMATA's exemption for 15 years. The people who live in the housing that goes up will still pay income taxes to the state and to the county. The developers will still pay impact taxes to the county. So there is still tax collection coming in that's very substantial. In fact, we've modeled out the Grosvenor site as a good example, and it still is a net positive to the county. In exchange for getting some additional tax revenue, what we're doing is we're getting thousands of units of housing delivered more quickly than would otherwise be the case. We're getting a much faster implementation of an important climate solution, people living over transit rather than farther away, driving more. And we're getting a quick delivery of affordable housing, the MPDUs that would otherwise, who knows how long we would wait for them. And as Councilmember Friedson said, we're catalyzing a market. We are helping transform an area where today, I think in some metro areas, you see that the metro site is almost a donut hole of development. We want it to be the catalyst for development. We want the tall buildings to be going up on the metro sites, improving the market, leading to more development around there. That's how we're going to create the walkable, bikeable, transit-oriented future that millennial and other workers are looking for, that you can find in other regions in the county, in the region, and frankly in the country. And we need to provide that as well here. So this legislation is really intended to help accelerate all of those goals together. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Reamer covered it. I think the question isn't can we afford to do this, it's can we afford not to do this. This is about metro sites that we have billions and billions of dollars of public investment in transit. And the question is whether or not we're going to take full advantage, the economic development potential, the environmental sustainability potential, the housing potential. Are we going to take advantage of this billions of dollars of investment that the public has already put into these sites, or are we going to let them stand as concrete and asphalt for parking? Do we want these sites to be places for parking, or do we want these sites to be places for people? Do we want to turn housing goals into actual housing units? Do we want to create communities? When we talk about, this is a gateway. Every metro site is a gateway into the communities in which they're located. And what do you see when you enter a gateway? Here you see a bunch of cars. How much better to see a lot of people? How much better to see activity? How much better to see the places where people live, where they recreate, where they socialize, where they go to drop their kids at daycare or at a coffee shop? That's what this is about. It's not about whether we can afford to do it. It's whether we can afford not to do it. The climate can't afford to wait. Our housing targets can't afford to wait. Our economic development potential can't afford to wait. We have to make the choices today and not leave these things to chance. And that's what this proposal is all about.
I'll just add to that, if we don't do this, then we're just going to wait. How long are we going to wait? Are we going to wait 20 or 30 more years for the kind of housing on metro station sites that we know we need? I don't think we should. We should be moving now to get that housing delivered as soon as possible.
How much leasable space or acreage is there on the W2 metro station site?
I can't give you that answer. I can't quote the number of square footage, but I can tell you that Metro has modeled out every station, and they know how much they can develop at every station according to existing zoning and height limits and things like that. And they have projected that across the county, they believe they could, at full build out, there would be 8,600 housing units delivered through Metro station development. And that would include between 12 and 1,300 MPDUs as required by the master plans or the county's MPDU law. So,
And follow-up to that would be a whole metro station
in Montgomery County, yeah, 8,600 housing units could be developed on all metro stations in Montgomery County combined, and it varies from site to site, from thousands at the Grosvenor site to 500-ish here at Forest Glen. It kind of varies from site to site. The key of the bill, though, is it's high-rise only. We don't want low-rise. We don't want a 3-story, a townhouse development going up at a metro site. It is a waste of land. It is a waste of a solution for climate change and for affordability. We want, tall buildings at metro sites, and this legislation will help bring them. If you got the stamina, Brianna, we can keep.
Well, when did you? Last question. When did you start discussions with WMATA? What was the discussions like during all of this?
Yeah, we approached WMATA probably 3 months ago, maybe a little more, and said, this is what we're looking at. And WMATA said, hallelujah, we were going to ask another jurisdiction in the region to do something like this because we have concluded ourselves that we have a challenge with development on metro station properties. And if you look around the region, they told us you won't see a lot of development at metro stations because of a lot of reasons having to do with the expense of building on a metro. You can imagine when you build here, you have a lot of infrastructure underneath the ground that you have to address. So they were already going to ask for something like this, and we're very, very happy to hear that we were going to propose it. And they're certainly hoping that this solution can become one that other jurisdictions will embrace. So they quickly responded with a presentation, which I've emailed around. If you don't have it, I'll make sure that you have it, that looks at every property in the county and then kind of models out what the development capacity is at that site. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your participation.